Good morning. My name's Dave Smithson. I'm the Senior Vice President of Exploration for Lift Power. We are lithium explorers. Our flagship project is the Yellowknife Pegmatite Field in the Northwest Territories in Canada. And it's a series of wide and long dikes that represent a major resource base in North America.
David, thank you very much for the introduction. I will want to get into the geology. This is, after all, I'm being designated as a technical interview. But first, tell us a bit about yourself. How did you come to the company, and what's your background?
It's an interesting story because I actually met Francis back in Newmont. Both of us worked for Newmont in the gold and base metal space for many years, and we crossed over in Africa. And I went on to work for the resource portfolio for Newmont and the chief geoscientist of Newmont for several years out of Denver, and went around the world for them and got amazing experience in gold and base metal stuff, mostly gold. Francis and I, over the years, after we left Newmont, shared each other's projects. We shared projects with each other and showed each other our stuff and kept each other abreast with what we were doing, and always bounced ideas off each other. And, so I've seen a lot of stuff that he's been working on over the years, and he's seen a lot of stuff that I've worked on over the years. In December last year, Francis showed me a really good project, a particularly good one that I hadn't seen something of its quality in the market, or something that he'd been working on that was really that impressive. And that inspired me to stop what I was doing and come over to Lift to realize a real opportunity. And so I'm coming from the gold-based metal space and coming into lithium. A lot of us are new explorers in the area, but there's a hell of a lot of crossover. And when you have really good people and you have the right tools and the right team assembled, the sky's the limit. And so I commenced with the company in January this year, and I came onto the company at the stage where it was really just a concept.
It's interesting what you're talking about, kind of recognizing an opportunity. Because I've been following the Azure Minerals story with the Andover Lithium project in Australia. And Tony Rivera, about a year ago, where are we now? Yeah, about a year ago, was kind of talking about the lithium pegmatite field as a conceptual stage. And then they really started drilling it out through the course of the last 10 months. And then they've now got a conceptual target of between 100 and 240 million tons. And it's gone like a bone. It's $1 billion market capitalization, and I think the shares have been suspended at the moment pending change of control transaction. So it's when these things go, they go with a whoosh. Do you? Gold is hard to find, isn't it? That's the tricky thing about gold mineralization, is the art is in finding it. And once you've found it and delineated your resource, then it's a relatively easy bit, because the capex and the metallurgy and the mineralogy is often quite simple. I know it can be complicated, but it's the finding it that's difficult. But it's not so hard to find lithium pegmatites where you are.
Yeah, no, it's a unique time to be an explorer in the lithium space. The pegmatites in Yellowknife are very long and very wide. You can see them from space. You can map them out with on aerial photography, on satellite imagery, and you can work out their average grade based on historical work that's already been completed on the project. So, as I was saying earlier, I actually came onto this project at a conceptual stage. The concept was, wow, these things are big. We know what's happening to other exploration groups. People are finding spodumene-bearing outcrops and drilling on them and turning them into major resources. So anything can happen with these things. They're incredibly. The whoosh is the right term, like you said. That's what happens on these things, and it feels like exploring for gold 50 years ago, when guys would have walked into, VG and outcrop. We're walking into outcrop with 20 to 30% spodumene on surface, and this is high grade stuff, and it's very valuable. And we're not exploring through cover. We're not trying to find them in tricky places. We're not looking for the peripheries of systems and exploring for them. We're tripping over them in the field. We're seeing them from space. So it's amazing.
When you talk about coming into it at a conceptual stage, does that mean that you were designing the drill program with Francis? Was that kind of your first task, so to speak, kind of get up to speed and design a drill program?
Yeah, 100%. My first task was to realize the true size and scale of the opportunity. We had seen in the historical data, and this is what pulled me in. Everybody in the past had seen how amazing these pegmatites really are. And people have held on to them. They've done systematic trenching all the way back to the 50s when they were discovered. And it just shows that everybody that's ever worked on them, no matter the price of lithium, has seen them as something to hold on to, because it's such a big pegmatite field and they're so wide and they're so long and there's so many tons there. So coming onto the project, it's like, oh my gosh, this thing's massive, and could it really be that big? And so that was the answer to the question to answer in the drill program. If we can show that these things go to depth, then we do have a major resource base and a unique project in a AAA position globally in Canada.
I think there are only about 7 or 8 resources with over 100 million tons of kind of, let's call it economic style grade mineralization. So, I mean, that's obviously the exploration target. You talk about 10 kilometers of strike. You talk about an average thickness of 15 meters, take it down to 300 meters. When I put that into my spreadsheet, I get over 100 million tons of rock as a kind of a thumbsuck conceptual target. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, our target is 100 to 150 million tons of spodumene.
I'm right in the ballpark there.
You're right in the ballpark.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like this in North America. There's absolutely nothing like it. And the dikes that we're drilling, the 8 dikes that we're drilling, are not the title portfolio either. We control the vast majority of the economic pegmatites out there. We're just starting in the places that we think we can pull the tons together into a central area. So what you're seeing in the drill results is only a fraction of the pegmatites that we actually have.
On your presentation, I can see you've got a group which you call the road access group, very helpfully named. I presume that there's road access to that group. And then there's the further afield group, which I presume is further afield. And you talk about 10 kilometers of pegmatite strike that you've mapped from space. How much is in the road access group, and how much is of that 10 kilometers, and how much is in the further afield group?
Yeah, most of it's in the stuff that we talk about is mostly in the road accessible group. So that's where we see the focus of the best tons and the widest widths, and that's where we think we can pull together enough tons to transport things into a central location to process them.
And the 8 dikes that you're targeting are in that road access group. So your drilling is road supported.
Yeah, 7 of the 8 are in the road accessible, and we're testing one in the fire field because it's just gigantic and amazing. Yeah. So we had to go test it early.
And what does that look like?
Well, it's not anything what we thought, actually. And this is the exciting thing about being in the lithium space, is that, we're just going to be given surprise after surprise. The fire field dike that we're drilling right now is called the Echo dike. It's a spodumene pegmatite, and it was historically mapped and trenched, and it's got fantastic grade, up to a couple of percent lithium oxide. The dikes are extensive on surface, and everybody realized that they looked really juicy, and we actually sent a consultant out there to look at them, and it was one of his favorites across all of the pegmatites that we'd seen. So we start drilling, and it's an exciting time. And we learned that actually none of the geology fit with what we were thinking. And so when we turned our model sideways, all of the data locked together, and we realized that we're actually dealing with sills. And what's really important about flat-lying structures is that they have really low strip ratio. So not only the big surprise that we had over there was like, oh gosh, it's a massive pegmatite, amazing, everybody loves it, let's go drill it. Not what we thought, but guess what? it's flat, and that means the
good
economics
surprise, not a bad
amazing.
surprise.
Fantastic surprise. So, generally that's been the trend to now. The trend has been good news.
What's the thickness of that sill at Echo?
The sills are stacked. There's multiple sills. We know of at least 3, and we know of a steep feeder that's feeding those dikes into the stratigraphy. So they're magmas that are emplacing in structures, but they also bleed out of the structures into the stratigraphy, and they follow the ductile geometries of the sediments in which they're hosted. So the dikes themselves vary between 10 to 15 meters, and the main feeder dikes around the same width. And we've tested down to 150 meters from surface, and we've poked through 3 lenses so far. But that feeder still goes down, or they might coalesce. So we really don't know what we're going to get ultimately. But the initial drill pass was pretty phenomenal.
And where is the results process on Echo? Because when I look at your website and I look at your news flow, and you're putting out these kind of regular, almost weekly updates. I confess I was slightly kind of overwhelmed coming into this interview with all of the names of the 8 different dikes. I can't remember whether Echo has come out the back end of the sausage factory, or is it still in the mincer?
Yeah, so I mean, the Echo has gone through the lab, and we do have results, and we have released some of those results, and it's proving to have grade. It's running over 1%, and we took a very quick pass at it because it wasn't actually in the original drill program. We originally decided to stay and drill off the road accessible group, but it was just too good to refuse, and we decided to pivot the program and run a quick camp out there and throw 4,000 meters into it and just see what we could get. And that was a really good thing to do, because that's time value exploration. And what it taught us was that, hey, we're dealing with a totally different beast out there. It's not this steep structure that might have a terrible strip ratio. It's actually a flat sill which has the form of a pit, basically. So, stepping out early and seeing some further afield stuff, I think was a really good strategy. And it's paying for us, and we'll continue drilling it off in the winter, and we'll be better prepared geometrically for how to drill it off. In terms of the actual sausage factory and the meat grinder, it's about 4 weeks from the core coming out of the ground to getting results back. That can change, obviously. Things that happen in the world. We had an emergency situation up in Yellowknife with wildfires and such. But generally, that's the trend. We can get a rock out of the ground, we fly it and get it cut, and we try and get it off to the lab as soon as possible. And the strategy behind this constant news flow is to keep our shareholders informed. I know myself as a shareholder, as somebody that invests in the market, if somebody's drilling, I want to know exactly what they're seeing coming out of the ground. And if I can get a hole by hole blow, even better. And if I don't receive news, then I start wondering why I'm not receiving news. So our strategy is twofold. It's to supply a consistent flow of information to the shareholder, weekly updates on results as we get them in. They flow through. We cross-section them, we publish them, and we show what's going on. Again, like you were saying, it's a lot of dikes. It's a big area. They're all slightly different. They all have different widths and different grades. They all have different internals. So that's been the strategy. A steady flow, 5-6 holes a week. And just as we drill 5-6 holes a week, then we just keep pumping them through like that. And
you say that a lot of the surprises have been positive. When I do go through the news releases, some of the dikes don't have mineralization. And am I right in thinking that one of the most important things that you're trying to do in these planar bodies, the dikes, is to build up continuity, both kind of vertically and also along strike? How's that shaped up with the data over time?
Yeah, it's all about consistency. It's all about consistency of feed to the mill ultimately, consistency in grade, and consistency in spodumene. So there is alteration on these systems. They're not just pure magmatic rock forming mineral systems. They do have hydrothermal sections to them. And the degree of alteration and the degree of hydrothermal overprint on them varies from dike to dike. And it's a common thing in these pegmatites. It pretty much occurs in all of them. And it accounts for most of the variability, and most of them globally is these overprinting hydrothermal pathways that are developed on the dikes. And the style of alteration is called a Greisen alteration, and it's quartz and muscovite that replaces spodumene. So there are places on the dike where there is spodumene replacement, but our modeling's showing us that it's on the outsides of the system. So it's actually now giving us more vector information on where to move the drills and in what direction to go. And the other really interesting thing that we postulated could be possible coming from gold space is that spodumene actually forms in chutes, and that's what we found. And so on the outsides of the chutes, we get more of this Greisen style alteration peripheral. And when we systematically drilled through that, we saw a lot of variation in results. But what it's done for us is made us realize actually it's a zoning. You see the nice clean spodumene in the middle, and it grades out into these more, hydrothermal kind of leakages outwards from the main clean spodumene zones, and they have a geometry themselves. So they're not just planes; they're actually plunging bodies on planes.
Mm.
And that's coming from the gold space. That's our bread and butter.
That's the bread and butter.
Yeah.
Forgive my complete ignorance about how these things are in place and formed. From what you've described, and perhaps it's useful to the viewers, there's the coarse crystals of spodumene and quartz and feldspar form in a magma chamber, which then breaches the overlying lithostatic pressure, and then the coarse crystals effectively flow up into the voids, which when the gaps are vertical, there's a dikes, and when there's a suitable fracture system horizontal, they become sills. Is that the right kind of general thesis?
Yeah, that's the general thesis. And again, they're very simple, and that's why they lend themselves so well to resource modeling, because a resource model is only as good as the geological model. And these are geologically very simple. And like you described, these are magmas. There's competing arguments on how the actual melt forms, but essentially a melt forms and it occupies any kind of crux or weaknesses in the crust, which might be stratigraphic. They might be it might inherit the fold and thrust belt, the fold and thrusting geometries. And what we're seeing between the two, all the different systems, is that they do follow brittle upright structures, but they do bleed into stratigraphy and make flat bodies as well. So it's very simple geometrically. Most of them are pretty planar. Most of them are pretty straight. And most of them form in sort of like tree trunks into a solid trunk, and that's what we're seeing. And that's been another pleasant surprise, is that things have coalesced from dike swarms on surface to consistent thick trunks at depth, and that's what we've seen on a number of the dikes that are steeply dipping, that things come together at depth, which is what we were hoping for.
And in one of them, there were kind of 4 dikes, and dike 1 and 3 were mineralized, and in another one, dikes 2 and 3 were mineralized. Is that just a function of the kind of the Greisenization or the Greisen alteration that you were talking about? Which of the where they get higher up, which ones are kind of altered?
The system actually gets to a point where it's crystallizing, so it's changing from a liquid magma into a solid rock, and so there's a density change, and that density change is accommodated by exsolution of fluids. And so just like in a porphyry, it starts crystallizing and dissolves a heap of fluid. These intrusions do the same thing. And they leak off a fluid, and it evolves through time, and it eventually evolves into a Greisen fluid, which replaces spodumene ultimately.
Okay, and so how are you using that as a vector? Is there any remote sensing stuff that you can do, or is it just geological modelling where you see the mica and the quartz? Do you think, okay, well, now we're on the outside of the system, let's move away from that? Is it being led by you geologists, or are there some remote sensing kind of geochemical or other features that are helping you hone in?
Yeah, the dikes are pretty tight. The alteration on the dikes are very tight, and they're quite narrow. So remote sensing, at a remote sensing scale, they're quite narrow. So what we look for in the remote sensing is actual causative intrusions, and we look for 2 micro intrusions which produce pegmatites. So we don't necessarily look for mineralogical differences in the dikes spectrally through satellite imagery. Rather, we look for fields of intrusions which have the right spectral characteristics that may produce pegmatites at their periphery. In detail, on the drill scale and on the deposit scale, we're defining the zonation and what's going on day to day by modeling and by understanding the geology. So that's why every week we put out cross sections. Our news flow and our workflow is already complete by the time we get the drill results back, because we're modeling everything in real time, and we're modeling all the mineralogy in real time. The mineralogy is what makes these things. So you want nice clean spodumens that are really coarse, really euhedral, got nice fresh boundaries, so they can be crushed down and they're easy to liberate from the gangue, and they're easy to convert into a concentrate. So understanding the mineralogy of these things is the big thing. And it's a little bit different from, exploring in typical hydrothermal gold systems or porphyry systems, in that you're actually trying to vector away from alteration and towards fresh rock. And so we can map the alteration really clearly because it's muscovite, and muscovite's a really easy mineral for most geologists to identify. And so we do 1 meter. Every meter, we actually estimate the modal percentages of all the minerals in the rock, and then we do implicit modeling of those minerals.
I see that you, in the news releases, you talk about kind of getting the mineral characterization by using hyperspectral scanning and X-ray diffraction. Is that a piece of kit that you have in your central core shed that you run all the core through?
Yeah, that's correct. We have a sea container with a three camera system that allows us to see the gangue mineralogy and all of the alteration mineralogy, and importantly the spodumene mineralogy. And of course we're visually logging everything modally per meter basis, but we can only see so much of the core. It's not it's not the whole thing. So it gives us a very, very close estimation of what the grade will be, and we use the visual estimations of spodumene percentages to calculate a predicted lithium oxide number, which gives us, as a group, when we report every week and we talk internally about how we're going and if we're succeeding or we're flatlining or we're going the wrong way, we use those data in real time to predict how well we're actually doing. And it's worked really
close?
well.
Yeah?
Yeah, we're very close. Yeah. Yeah, it's very close.
And I've wanted to ask about your kind of your drill plan across the 8 dikes, and the fact that you did that big, you took that 4,000 meters to go and drill Echo. How much of it was kind of systematic, laid out right from the beginning, and how much change has there been in terms of, have you changed the number of dikes that you're targeting, or was it roughly all part of the plan to drill all 8?
It's an interesting project. It's a hybrid resource exploration project, and we're learning on the fly. We had a concept, we had some historical information, and we set out and started drilling. We set out to drill knowing that there's going to be surprises, things are going to change, and of course they have. And we've got a very dynamic team. We see everything in real time. We're totally cloud-based, and all of our data is visualized in real time. It's almost all automated, actually. And so it facilitates a lot of thinking and no nuts and bolts messing around, trying to get information in and get it visual so you can see things and make decisions. Our stuff is all flowing, all real time, and it allows us to make real-time decisions. And what we've seen is that these are not just planar features. They're actually... the spodumene is contained on that plane in a geometry which is more like a pencil or a cigar shape, with that goes down that plane. And so we're learning as we go that it's not just a simple process of systematically drilling them out. I mean, we have to systematically drill them out because we need to know, if there's anything else down there, if there's where the limits of spodumene are. And what we found in the drilling, for example, is that the spodumene actually funnels into high-grade zones that follow spodumene chutes. And so our drilling has evolved. It's not static at all. We're not like, let's set the drill program and drill that. We don't work like that. We move to the information and we make decisions on the fly. Echo's a good example of that. We pivoted the program out there to get that testing because we knew it was going to be very important, and it gave us a really amazing surprise in that it's a sill, it's flat lying, it's going to have a low strip, it's going to be great. When we went to Fire Southwest, for example, we started systematically drilling it off, and then we realized, oh gosh, it's actually focusing into a plunge going that way, and we started doing deeper holes to go test for underground potential. And so we started the program based on the historical work. The historical workers said, well, there could be, it could go to 150 meters. If it goes to 150 meters, you've got 50 to 75, million tons sitting out there. But we said, well, what if it goes to 300 meters? What if it goes deeper than that? When we started drilling, we realized that it goes deeper than that. And we have done tests down to 300 meters below surface in these spodumene chutes. And we're seeing that, they're full of spodumene over good widths.
Is it possible that you might focus on the kind of the high-grade plunging chutes? And I know you've still got an exploration target of 100 to 150 million tons, but could it be that you kind of the first 20 or 30 that you target is the high-grade stuff, and kind of you put more emphasis on those chutes, or that is there enough of these plunging chutes to still kind of fit into your overall exploration target thesis?
Yes. I mean, it seems like a common theme on at least 4 of the 8 dikes that we're drilling. I mean, we're very early days on some of them, but the ones that we have more advanced drilling on, they all seem to coalesce into chutes, just like gold does, structurally controlled. So, our thinking has evolved from pits to underground. And so our exploration targeting, our resource drill spacing, and the way we're approaching it is changing through time as well. Our goal here, our job, is to realize tons. The more tons and the higher grade we can get, the better. And that's the objective of this drilling, is to define which are the best dikes. Where are they? How do they sit spatially? How are we going to get them out of the ground? And where do we take them to? So it's all about being systematic, but there's also an element of exploration mixed in there, in that we're pivoting to new things. We're testing chutes to see if that geometry is real, and we're learning on the fly. And our tool set, working from 3D modeling all the way through to core scanning, to remote sensing spectral work, to magnetics and geophysics, we've thrown the kitchen sink at in terms of exploration tools to understand where the dikes might get fatter, where the corridors go to. And I'll give you an example. We ran a geophysical survey in the summertime and identified structures. And we set a hole out recently, 450 meters from the north end of one of our dikes, and we hit pegmatite with spodumene in it. And It's not outcropping. So it is a real combination of exploring and resource drilling.
Yeah, really interesting. Thank you. Now, of course, you had that month curtailment due to the to the wildfires. Your drill program is 32,000 meters ish, and you had wanted to do 40,000. So there's kind of a missing 8,000 meters. Are you going to kind of recoup that in time?
Yeah, the plan is we're only stopping the drilling because it's becoming uneconomic to fly things around with the weather windows that we have at this time of the year up there. So we're in a lull where we have to wait for things to freeze off. But as soon as everything freezes, we'll be out there dragging those drills across the snow and ice, and we'll get those drills turning again, and we'll get the rest of those meters. And I don't think we're ever going to actually stop. I think we're just going to get out there this winter. We'll drill the rest of that initial program. We'll start to resource model that. We'll start getting some tons and grades onto it. And my inclination, based on what we've seen so far, is that we'll just keep going. It's going to be more and more and more drilling. And we'll get into those more far afield dikes as we go. But the goal for the company is to hit that drill meterage target at the end of winter, which was always the plan.
And will you be able to drive to the far afield group over the snow and ice? I mean, is that something you can do on skidoos and without road access?
Yeah, we'll create our own ice road to get out there, and we'll just drag everything across. And it's
good,
easy times.
David, thank you so much. It's been really a fascinating introduction into the kind of the technical aspect of your project. It's taught me a bit about pegmatite exploration and lithium exploration. And good luck with the drilling. And I look forward to kind of having another conversation, perhaps in a few months when the story has continued to evolve.
I'd be delighted. Exciting times, and I look forward to more good news and to talk again in the future.